Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Stacy Varghese, and I'm the Director of Leadership Giving and Engagement at St. John's University. Today, we have Nina L. Gunderson, who will speak on women and investing. Some housekeeping rules before we begin. If you have a question, please submit it on the bottom right in the Q&A section to panelists and hosts, and they will be answered at the end of the presentation. Also, a recording of this webinar will be available to you on the Alumni Professional Development page on the university site. Now, I'm excited to introduce our speaker. Nina Gunderson is Account Vice President at UBS, the Gunderson Group, which is a UBS financial services team located in New York. By joining the Gunderson Group, Nina adds a multi-generational dimension to the team. As a financial advisor, she works with families and the team to create customized investment plans to help grow and protect clients' wealth. These plans focus on ensuring that clients will be able to meet their needs for the future they envision for themselves and their families. Over the 2 years, she gained firsthand experience with clients and UBS professionals in areas such as wealth management research, advanced planning, and field development. She developed an expertise in millennials and their behavior as it pertains to investing, creating tailored content to increase the generation's level of financial literacy. She holds a Series 7 and 66 securities licenses, as well as a life, accident, and health insurance license. Nina is committed to giving back to the community. She also enjoys photography and travel, having visited 25 countries to date. Welcome, Nina. I will hand the webinar controls over to you now.
Thank you, Stacy, for the kind introduction, and good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here and happy to be able to talk about what probably is one of the most important conversations, especially for women in the coming years, as the wealth really starts to transition from men to women. Over 50% of the wealth is said to transition to women's hands in the coming years. So it's really an important topic to be able to think about and see what we can do to empower women to make informed decisions. So today I'm going to give you a little background on our team, some of the work that we do, what wealth management really is and what it means. And then I'm going to dig into about 10 steps that women can take today to just get more informed and get more involved in managing their financial well-being. At the end, I'll kind of wrap up just with a general market summary and commentary about asset allocation and investing. And then I'll leave it open for any questions that may be on your mind. And what I'll also say is that I'm happy to answer any questions individually that anyone may have afterwards. Stacy has my contact information, and I'm happy to share it with anyone and have a more personal conversation if there's something that you don't want to necessarily address or talk about in front of the group. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started. So the Gunderson Group, we're at UBS. We're a multi-generational team of 6 professionals. We're led actually by my mother, Louise Gunderson, who's the senior partner of our group. She's been in the industry for over 40 years, and she's actually the top-ranked female advisor at the firm. And she was just recently ranked number 8 in all of New York City for the ultra high net worth and high net worth clients in the New York City area by Forbes. So we're very excited about that. What our team really specializes in is relationship management and financial planning. And I'll dig into a little bit more about what that means in the next few slides and what wealth management really encompasses. But what we really try to do as a team is create a very tailored and personal conversation with each and every one of our clients and tailor the conversation directly to their needs, their wants, their risk tolerance, their goals and objectives. Together, we manage about $1 billion in assets and oversee about 225 family relationships, whether that be individuals or multi-generational families. So what is wealth management? I think these 6 points, they're just a little bit of the tip of the iceberg about what wealth management really is, but it's about building relationships. So as I mentioned, we really try to connect one-on-one with our clients. And that way it helps us ensure that we're meeting each and every one of their needs and their goals. We provide tailored financial and investment advice. We create custom portfolios for each of our clients that meets their specific objectives, and most importantly, their risk tolerance and their cash flow needs. We help clients as they're thinking about retirement, and even when their retirement seems very, very far off for them, we talk to them about how to take the right steps from day one of starting your career to plan for a successful retirement. Tax planning is something that we give general advice on, but we always encourage working directly with our accountant. And we always recommend that the accountant and our team, as well as your trust and estate lawyer, are always engaged together, working as what my mom likes to call the three-legged stool for all of our clients, supporting you and supporting them. Again, we go through estate planning, like I mentioned, with the trust and estate attorney. And that's really just making sure that, when it's time for your wealth to transition to your next generation, that it's really set up to be the way that you want it to be. We come up, as I mentioned, with personalized solutions, and that really goes beyond just investment portfolios, but it's helping you get a mortgage, thinking about creative ways to finance that real estate purchase if a mortgage doesn't necessarily make sense, setting up a 529 plan for you and your children so that you have it so that college can be taken care of down the road, and so much more than that. These are a number of the different types of investment vehicles that you can think about. Certainly investment accounts is right at the top, but it's also about retirement planning and savings through 401ks with your employer. If you have a health savings account that's offered through your health insurance plan at work, that's something that you should definitely always think about taking advantage of. Insurance, as Stacy mentioned, I'm licensed in life and health insurance, and so it's coming up with either term policies or whole life policies for our clients. Mortgages, whether it be a primary or a secondary residence, getting a mortgage in place, especially right now with interest rates being at historic lows. The mortgage rates that we've been seeing have just been unbelievable, and highly encourage anyone to think about putting a mortgage in place if that's something that you're considering at this point in time. Education planning and savings. 529 accounts are a specific account that you can create that is specifically designed to go towards paying for college tuition, as well as room and board and a few other approved expenses. Essentially what you do is you put money into this and it grows tax-free as long as when you go 18 years or however many years until your child goes to college, as long as it gets paid directly to the institution out of that account, there's no tax implications on any of that investment growth, as well as the distribution. Credit cards and loans, whether it be helping our clients get a credit card through UBS or helping them consider which credit card makes the most sense for them that they're considering outside of our UBS ones. Loans, we have securities-backed loans is what they're called, and it's basically where we help lend money, where we use your portfolio as the basis for what's called collateral. Again, trust and estate planning and tax planning strategies, and then ending with financial plans. And that really goes into retirement planning and thinking about your future. So let's start now about where women can start to get involved. So I think these are three really important statistics that speak a lot about what we're seeing in terms of the demographic. So 56% of women are deferring their long-term financial decisions to their partner or their spouse. 33% of single women do not feel confident about making long-term investment decisions. 82% of millennial women want to get married someday, yet 79% expect that their spouse is the one that's going to provide them with financial security. So as a woman who is very proud of my career and about establishing my own financial independence, this is something that I'm incredibly passionate about, and something that the firm at UBS has been very passionate about as well. And UBS has a great initiative called Own Your Worth. And it's all about trying to change these statistics so that these numbers go down and, or most of them go down. We want that 33% number certainly to go up. And we want more and more women to feel confident about making their own investment decisions. For our team, it's always really important if you come to us with a spouse or significant other, we're going to talk to both of you. We're not just going to talk to your husband or your significant other. We're always going to talk to both of you and have that conversation be applicable for the couple as a whole. And that's really important so that, God forbid, if something were to happen to your significant other, it's a way for women to feel like they have a seat at the table as well and that they are in control as well. So the 10 steps or the 10 things for women to think about. First and foremost, keep dreaming your dreams. I think one thing that I've noticed certainly about women over the last few years is that we're getting more and more empowered to think bigger and think bolder and really prioritize our own careers and our own aspirations. So what I mean by dreaming your dreams as it pertains to your money, think about what you, in 3 buckets, your liquidity, longevity, and your legacy. And what that really is, think about your liquidity, kind of what you need for your day-to-day life, your day-to-day cash flows. So some examples, entertainment and travel. If you like to take a trip with your family each year, then budget for that. If you're thinking about purchasing a home, you've been renting all these years and you're ready to put down roots somewhere. That's where that money comes in, that kind of liquidity, the 0 to 3 years timeline. Longevity, it's thinking beyond those first 3 years and thinking about your retirement, anything else that you want to accomplish within your life and some of those further out goals and aspirations. And then finally, legacy. That goes beyond your lifetime. That's thinking about when you pass away, what do you want to leave behind? Is that setting up education for your grandchildren? Is that leaving a donation to St. John's because that's where your alma mater is? Or is it is it a different charity that's personal to you or your family? Whatever it may be, take the time to think about what you want your personal legacy to look like. These are a few key questions that go into accomplishing, dreaming your dreams. So again, what do you want to accomplish in life? What are your main concerns? What are you most afraid of? What keeps you up at night? What do you want, like I said, what do you want your legacy to be? Who are the people that matter most to you in your life? And how do you plan to achieve your life's vision? These all seem like pretty kind of high up, big questions to think about. But as long as you just get some of the ideas going, you can think a little bit about some of the key steps that go towards answering those questions. Make your mark. How do you want to change the world? Like I mentioned before, women are more empowered than ever before. And so we're thinking about how can we make a difference? How can we actually start to make our mark on the world? So think about, who do you want to receive your wealth if you're no longer able to enjoy it? Who are the most important people in your lives? And how do you want that wealth to be divided amongst them? Is giving while living important to you? So, again, I'll use St. John's as the example. Would you rather donate annually each year to St. John's, or do you want to leave, a chunk of money at the end of your life as a scholarship, let's say, or just a nice donation? Do you want to leave anything to any other causes that you care about? And then do you want to put limits in place on the inheritance that you pass along to your loved ones or to your friends or family? Number 3, this is probably the most important element that I would say of the 10 steps, and it's really knowing your net worth. You need to understand what you own today and what you have so that you can start to figure out what you want down the road. So when I say your net worth, it's your assets minus your liabilities or your debt. So what you own today versus what you owe, and when you subtract that out, you get your total net worth. So here's an example about understanding, a little bit of a first pass at understanding what your net worth can kind of look like with a real life example. But I'm going to go on, to the next slide. And again, happy to share this presentation directly with anyone as well. But I'm going to go to the next slide because it highlights some more tangible examples of assets and liabilities. So your assets can be your checking and savings account that you have, at the bank. If you have an investment account with stocks or bonds, any of your retirement accounts. So if it's your 401ks, if it's your, HSAs, things like that, education accounts, 529 plans. You can also create UGMAs or UTMAs. Those are accounts that are geared towards your children, but they become theirs when they reach the age of majority. So when they're 18 or 21, depending. employer stock awards, if that's something that your company gives you benefits, that's considered an asset, even if you don't necessarily have access to it today. Again, deferred compensation, similar thing. Your home, any other real estate or investment properties that you may have, your earrings that you have, your jewelry, your tangible physical property, that's an asset. Cars, boats, a business, any of your life insurance policies. Some different liabilities. If you have a mortgage in place, that's going to be considered debt. If you have student loans, credit card loans, things of that nature, those are all considered to be liabilities. Number 4, make smart spending choices. Categorize your spending based on needs, wants, and wishes. Before you even start to think about needs, wants, and wishes, what's really important is to create a budget for yourself. So thinking about what your monthly expenses are and what your annual expenses are. There's a difference between some of those kind of fixed costs, as I like to call them. So my mortgage payment or maintenance payment that I pay on my New York City apartment, that's a fixed cost that doesn't change each month. It may start to change each year with, if maintenance goes up in my building, but those are fixed costs that don't change regardless. Your Con Edison bills or, electricity bills, your cable bills, again, those are your fixed costs. Then think about some of the other costs or the variable costs, your dining out budget, your grocery budget. For me, I had a coffee line item on my budget when I was going into the office each day because I liked getting my iced coffee from the coffee shop downstairs. Think about, if you buy gifts for people, if you, like to travel, things like that. It's important to keep track of those on a month-by-month basis so that way you can see where you're falling in line towards your annual goals. Once you know kind of what your daily spend is like or your monthly spend is like, then you can start thinking about your needs, your wants, and your wishes for the money that you're netting after all of your expenses go out. You can start to prioritize when you want to accomplish those needs, wants, and wishes. And then you can also start thinking about, okay, if I can't afford them today, how much am I going to have to save each month to be able to accomplish that? Here's an example of, a worksheet that you can use to create your monthly cash flow. For me, I have a budget worksheet on Excel that I use every month. Again, happy to share that with anyone. But at the end of the day, you need to do what works for you. You need to do it in a way that you're going to be able to stay on top of month by month and get it done and get it accomplished because it's such an important element of your monthly financial planning. Check your cash. You should keep some cash on hand for short-term needs, but also make sure you have enough to cover an emergency or create an emergency fund. You don't, though, want to have too much cash because while it's important for short-term needs, historically, inflation has eaten away at the purchasing power of cash over time. So here's a few different examples of bread, gas, a car, and a home, and just seeing how with inflation, how these average costs have rose from 1988 until 2018. So if your cash was just sitting there, it's not going to keep up with those increases in those purchase prices. So think about what do you need to live on day to day, and then going from there, think about with all that, the excess cash that you have, investing that money or at least getting it working a little bit differently for you. Know you're enough. Many of us feel like we're on a treadmill and they feel like there's a lot of pressure on them and to keep going, to keep working, to keep going just so that they can have enough and that their family's lifestyle can be maintained. More than half of investors feel pressure to continue working to keep their family's lifestyle up. And another interesting statistic is if you think about for certain millionaires, 56% of millionaires feel like they have to keep working. So no matter what your net worth is, it's important to know that it's a universal feeling of knowing that you just want to keep going and keep working and feel that pressure no matter what your net worth is to make sure that your family is protected. So some questions about knowing you're enough. Do I have enough to sustain my lifestyle? Again, that goes back to making sure that you understand what your monthly budget is and what your annual spending is. Because if you don't know what that number is, you're not going to know if you have enough to sustain your lifestyle. Do you have an updated net worth or asset allocation? Do you have a spreadsheet where you keep track of all of your different investment accounts and those up-to-date numbers and what they're invested in, so that you really do have a good understanding of what's available for you? Does your current budget align with your goals? This goes back to, first and foremost, just starting and making sure you have a budget in the first place. Are your values reflected in your individual financial plan? That's a really important question to think about. And what I mean by that, some people, it's important about giving back charitably. Is that included in your financial plan? Have you spoken, if you have a financial advisor, do they know that that's something you want to do, whether it be an annual gift each year, or maybe it's, at the time of your death? Is covering your child's education really important to you? That needs to be, asserted and planned for. Are you saving enough and in the right places? That question is really just about going back to your budget. And once you figure out what your cash flow needs are, thinking about the different buckets that you have, the different investment vehicles that you have, and making sure that you contribute to each and every one of those in the proper ways, so that it doesn't, become overwhelming or cumbersome. What you want to make sure too is that you're saving both for retirement as well as your own personal investment account. Sometimes we see clients that are so focused on saving for retirement, so they're, maxing out their 401ks, they're doing their maximum contributions to your individual retirement accounts or IRAs. And then when they come to retirement at 55, or 57, let's say, they realize, wait, I never built up my personal investment account. And now I'm going to have a penalty if I draw from my IRA before I'm 59 and a half. So make sure that you're saving in a diverse range of vehicles and places. Leave no loose ends. Plan ahead just in case. This means planning for those what ifs, the God forbids. And what's really important, especially for younger individuals, if you have a young child, make sure that you have a will in place, because you want to make sure the most important question in there is, what happens if something happens to me and my partner, to my child? Who's going to take care of your children for you? It's a lot easier if you have that already predetermined. If you own a home, if you have certain assets, again, make sure that you have a plan or a will in place so that your money goes to the people that you care about, so that it's not just kind of scrambled at the end. What if you lose your ability to think and make decisions? Have a conversation with your loved ones and figure out who the power of attorney is going to be for you, who you trust to make your health decisions, your healthcare proxy, things of that nature, so that you feel like you can be taken care of and protected should you lose that ability. What if no one knows the people and causes who should inherit my assets? This goes back to having a will in place. Work with a trust and estate lawyer. You can come up with just a basic will. It doesn't have to be complicated. Many people think that creating a will is this big process and you need to have millions of dollars to create one, and that it's an expensive process. Don't think about it in that regards. You can honestly work with someone and create just a simple piece of paper that shows the clear-cut plan of what happens if something happens to you. What if I can't take care of myself or others someday? Again, having a plan in place, figuring out who can take care of you. Get a long-term care insurance policy so that if you need assisted living or nursing home capabilities, that's somewhat accounted for in your financial plan. What if taxes claim most of my children's inheritance? That's something that, in 2025, the estate laws are potentially going to change from the $22 million exemption. We don't know what it's going to be. So working with a trust and estate lawyer to come up with a plan in place is what's going to be important. There are strategic things that you can do ahead of time to maximize what gets passed on to loved ones, organizations, charitable causes, and to keeping the taxes on a minimal basis. Make your money work. Grow your wealth over time by investing. This follows up on the conversation that I mentioned earlier about figure out what your cash bucket is and then put the rest of it to work for you. So women around the world are outliving men and have a longer lifespan. So that means that our resources are going to have to be maintained. So here are 4 simple steps that you can take to get your money working for you. Invest in your employer-sponsored 401k or retirement plan. or create an individual retirement account for yourself if you may not have access to an employer-sponsored one. Consider risk and funds that are applicable to your age. You don't necessarily have to keep it tied to your age. Some people think, okay, if I'm, based on my age, that creates a certain percentage of equities to bonds and that ratio. And over time, as I get older, the number of equities I have should go down and the number of bonds that I have should go up. You don't necessarily need to think in those terms so specifically, but think about what your risk tolerance is. And the most important thing that I can highlight today is that you only lose money when you sell. So think about if you were to look at your investment account today and it's, let's say, $100,000 and your money goes down and the market goes down and now you check your balance the next day and it's $90,000. You didn't physically lose that $10,000 because you haven't sold anything, but how do you feel when you look at that balance? If you freak out and it terrifies you, then you know that your risk tolerance should be on the more conservative side because you clearly don't feel comfortable taking too much risk and losing your principal. If you look at it and you say, you know what, I'm not touching this money right now, I'm okay with the fact I know it's going to come back over time, then your risk tolerance can be more aggressive. Number 3, purchase a diversified range of assets, including stocks and bonds. This is a really important element, and one thing that we always stress with our clients is coming up with a diversified asset allocation, and one that's, again, tailored to their risk tolerance and their cash flow needs and their goals and their objectives. Over time, a globally diversified portfolio is one that tends to outperform. And I'll actually have a slide a little bit further on that shows that no one asset class actually wins over time, but actually the beauty of a fully diversified portfolio is what's going to hold up best. And number 4, whether it's a financial advisor or a financial professional, ask someone for help, get guidance. It's okay that you don't necessarily know the answer to these questions or know where to start, but the most important thing that you can do is ask someone to help you and ask someone to help guide you. Talk money. So many people are afraid to get talking about money and what it means. They think it's taboo. They think that it's something that's private and personal. I'm not saying you need to walk around with a Post-it on your forehead saying how much money you have in your pocket, but talk to people about what they're thinking about. If you have young kids, hey, have you thought about putting in a 529? What's holding you back from doing that? Or do you think that I should get a mortgage right now? Did you get a mortgage? Have conversations, figure out what's working for people. Talk to someone. Do you have a financial advisor? What do you like about them? Why do you like them? The best piece of advice in terms of finding someone to work with is going to someone that you know and trust and asking who they're working with and getting that referral from them. Because at that point, you've already sort of done a little bit of that first round of due diligence. Because if your sister's working for someone or your brother's working with someone and they have a good relationship with them, and it's someone that you trust is telling you this is a good advisor to work with, that helps alleviate a little bit of that due diligence in that process that you have to do. Here are a few ways that you can think about starting a conversation. Bring up money with your friends. Talk to your friends about spending less money. Talk to your partner about, overspending and developing a budget. One thing that my fiance and I do every year at the start of the year is we sit down and we look at our expenses and we come up with a budget for the year. We figure out how much we're contributing to our joint account, how much we're contributing to our personal accounts, and what, our grocery bills are going to be, what, things are going to be. And one way to think about that and coming up with that budget is take a look at a course of 3 months. Don't just look at 1 month and use that as your framework, but think about 3 to 4 months, because that's when you start to see trends. And certainly November, December, when maybe you're giving Christmas gifts or holiday gifts to people at that point in time, your budget's probably going to be a little bit higher. So think about that when you're planning for your full year budget, and remember, at the end of the year, I'm going to have that much more in terms of expenses, but look towards a multi-month plan. So that way you can actually see where the trends start to be. Find support. Find someone who can help you better understand your wealth, whether that's a financial advisor or another financial professional. Find someone that you can talk to about defining what your goals and objectives are, determining your risk tolerance, creating a got a dog barking in the background. Create a comprehensive financial plan, set up contingency plans, educate kids about money, plan for retirement, analyze your insurance needs, and protect your assets. So here's a recap. Here's 4 things that you should do, and it's very similar to the slide that I already just shared for number 8. And it's those 4 key steps that I think that you should really think about doing after this call. And maybe the first place to even start before that is just start doing some research online. You know, it's a little bit daunting, and I think one of the biggest barriers to entry is we turn on TV, we see CNBC, and they're talking about valuations and PE ratios, this, that, and the other thing, and you get overwhelmed and you think, what does that have anything to do with my personal portfolio? It doesn't really. That's what we're here for as your financial advisors, to understand what all of that means and working with you to bring you the right investment solutions to be able to come up with a portfolio that meets your goals and objectives. So let's think a little bit now about the market environment today. We're still, coming up on a year of this pandemic and living in completely unprecedented times. Post-pandemic, we're expecting to see, a lot of economic growth, but the market may not follow. I mean, the market has proven to us today that there's a lot of uncertainty out there, and it's not necessarily acting in the most rational of ways. For example, back on January 6th, when the Capitol was being stormed, the market was up almost 500 points that day. That was a threat to our democracy, yet the stock market normally would respond negatively to that, but it just didn't. Unemployment back in April of 2020, when the pandemic was first really starting to boom and roar its head, was at a high of 14.7%. Today, that number has come down as of January to 6.3%. So we're starting to see improvement there. And what that shows is that people are starting to go back to work. We're starting to reopen across the country and internationally. Stimulus, we've seen, the CARES Act help bolster our economy and the financial markets. Biden's new $1.9 trillion stimulus package that he just passed at the end of February is coming into play. So the government is showing support to try to get our country back open and helping the people around the country. The Reddit scandal, this is something that honestly and truly I'm just kind of mentioning because of what happened, but this is not day-to-day asset allocation and investing. This was kind of a freak event and people getting together. What's important about this is thinking about managing risk and diversification, not chasing the hot stock or the flying stock that you see out there because of something that you read that triggers all of a sudden a lot of people to go and buy into it. So this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier, and the importance of diversification. And it's a lot to look at and a lot to see on the screen, but the most important element of this is the importance of diversification. All of those different colored blocks are different asset classes. And so what this shows is year over year, which asset class performed the best compared to others. And so it's showing that there's no one asset class that's really going to always win or outperform each year, but come up with a balanced portfolio that meets your individual needs and objectives. Here's just highlighting a little bit about women's risk tolerance as compared to men's. So what's interesting is that the average risk and below is about 68.8% for women. Above average risk takers is only 27.8%. And then substantial risk takers of women is only 3.4%. If you look compared to men, that number, is over 50% of men are willing to take a little bit more above average risk than others. Timing the market, that's something that honestly and truly never really ends up working to be beneficial. So remaining fully invested, no matter, what's going on in the market, is always an important element. So what this really shows people is just, thinking about the average performance of the S&P, and depending on how many days you missed by withdrawing from the market based on the goals or based on what was going on in the market that day. So the big important message of this is just remain fully invested. And what that goes back towards is what I was mentioning earlier. Think about how you feel if, in that example that I gave, if your portfolio went down $10,000, were you freaked out or were you okay with it? And if you were okay with it, then definitely remain fully invested. And if you weren't okay with it, that means you need to update your asset allocation and come up with one so that you can remain fully invested. So this again just highlights our team a little bit and the different investment professionals we have on there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look over at the Q&A and start going through some of the questions that came in over the course of the last half hour or so. So just bear with me while I kind of read through some of them to make sure I answer everyone's question. Oh, we got quite a few here. All right, so there's a lot of questions about making a budget and a template on that, as well as how much money to keep cash in the bank and your rainy day funds. So what I'll do is just kind of talk, a little bit about that big picture so that I hopefully answer everyone's questions for it. The rainy day fund, it's a very personal thing. There's not really a rhyme or a reason in terms of how much to think about. But basically look at your monthly expenses. And what I would recommend is think about having about 3 months worth of your monthly expenses, anywhere from 3 to 6, depending on your risk tolerance and what else you're invested in, is going to be an important element. So if you have a lot of more conservative investments that are easier for you to get access to besides your cash, then you can think about maybe only having, a lower kind of emergency fund. But if you don't really have a lot of other investment assets or whatnot, then I would say think about having more towards that 6 month emergency day fund so that God forbid something happens, you feel protected and covered. Let's see. How can you catch up in terms of, saving for retirement? The point is about that is that you recognize that maybe your retirement accounts are a little bit on the lower side. You don't necessarily have to catch up in terms of saving in retirement vehicles. Certainly, if you can, if you're over a certain age, you're able to actually add an additional $1,000 to your retirement contributions to your IRA account. And so you can think about doing that as one way to catch up. But think about now just saving in general is important and going across that. What's the best way to invest? That's a personal question. So, using an online platform like a Fidelity or a Vanguard, it depends ultimately, honestly, and truly on kind of the size of your portfolio and what your investment needs are. If you like doing the due diligence and the research and trading stocks each day, then go for it and do that. But if you really need someone to help you think about how to come up with a portfolio or an asset allocation, then I highly encourage you to reach out to a financial advisor. And it doesn't have to necessarily be one like our team. We do work with, I would say people in kind of the 1 million plus range is kind of our average client, but we do have clients, underneath that net worth that we work with and engage with, but I don't want people to think that a financial advisor is only someone at a place like UBS. There are financial professionals that you can engage with and work with. And so I just highly encourage you to speak to someone. Range of cost for financial advisors, that's a very personal question to each advisor. Unfortunately, there's not really an average that I can share with you. For us, we always our cost is based on your asset allocation and how the portfolio is set up. So it's hard to kind of give, a range for that. How do you calculate your net worth? With that's thinking about assets and liabilities. And so I kind of listed out here. I can go back to that slide. These are some examples of assets and liabilities. So add up all of the ones that are in the column that say assets, subtract all of the ones that you see in the debts and liabilities, and that's how you can figure that out. how do you know if your advisor is trustworthy and assets are protected? That's a really important question. And what I'm going to say about that is, that goes towards the core of the relationship that you have with them. Our team, we establish a fiduciary responsibility with our clients. And, one way that we help prove that is that my mom is a senior advisor on the team. Any investment that we bring to a client, she has in her own personal portfolio. We eat what we're cooking because that's an important way to show our client that we're right there with you. And that if we believe in an investment solution for you, we could believe in it no differently for ourselves. Advisors are guided by what's called our U4. And both my mom and myself have zero implications on our U4. And that goes as far as to say is anytime anyone raises any form of a complaint, that goes on your U4. So for us, we really pride ourselves on listening to our clients, hearing what they're saying, and making sure that we're not forcing them into any investment vehicle they may not be comfortable with, making sure that anytime we suggest an investment, that they understand it at its core and really understand why we're bringing it to them and putting it in their portfolio. And honestly, it's just getting to know our clients. We've established very personal relationships with them because I think then the trust becomes such an important element in that. And so you build trust by really just getting to know people and getting to know them and what's important to them. There was a question about going back to slide 26. So let me go there. So these are just kind of some 4 steps that you can take after this. I saw one more question about for women that are maybe making more than their significant other or their spouse, their male counterpart. I think that is something that is happening more and more these days and maybe has a little bit of a taboo on it, but I would own that, take pride in that. You're the one that's earning more for your household, but make sure you have a conversation with your significant other and finding ways that you can build up your assets in an equitable way between the two of you, never making them feel like because they're earning less than you, that they're less important in your family's financial picture or security, but figure out a way that's going to be the right balance. So maybe it means that you contribute, $10 more to your monthly budget than they contribute, or something like that, but find a way that works for you and have a conversation about it. And what's most important at the end of the day for couples is to make sure that they're both in jobs that they feel fulfilled by and that are important to them. It should never be driven by money. Obviously, that's a very important element when we think about our career choices. But if you're not happy in what you do, that has so many more implications than, than the financial stability that maybe you have, or the financial additions that you're making to your family's net worth just because you took the job that had the higher salary. There's so many more other implications that could go into that than anything else. Is there an amount we should have saved by a certain age to gauge if we're on track? How do you do it in a balanced way in terms of paying off debts and building assets first? I mean, the thing about debt, there's a little bit of a stigma against debt. And what I want to just remind people is that some debt is actually good debt to carry. And, a mortgage is a good way to have debt on your balance sheet because you're able to acquire an asset that is worth more and maybe has more value, but you're able to do it at a more affordable price. Think about if your mortgage on your house is at 3% and your investments are working for you at they're earning 5 to 6%, then you want to keep your assets invested, your investments working for you. And if you start to see a shift, maybe there's a pullback in the market, then that's when you can maybe start thinking about paying off some of your mortgage, because now your mortgage is 3% and your portfolio is down 5%, so thinking about structuring how your money is working for you. Let's see what else. And Stacy, feel free to tell me how much more time I have to keep going here. So, and again, I'm happy to have individual conversations with people. Here's a good one. If you're already saving for retirement, what else do you suggest to invest the extra income in? what I would say there is build up a personal investment account for yourself. So if you've already done a great job of saving for retirement, start building up your personal investment bucket so that, let's say, you know, like I mentioned, you get to 50 and you're like, you know what, I've had it, I'm done working. You don't feel pressure to have to keep working because all of a sudden now all you have is your retirement, you know, assets, and you can't touch those without penalty until you're 59 and a half.
You're good with time, Nina. So if you want to keep going with the questions, please go ahead.
Okay. If you're 7 years from retirement age with no debt, for how long would you continue to invest in stocks if you're presently investing 35%? I mean, I think investing, as long as you're investing in high quality stock investments, you should keep investing in stocks even throughout retirement. And, you know, like I mentioned before, a fully diversified portfolio is one that tends to outperform and hold up better over time. So the important thing is to understand what you're investing in and make sure that it's high quality. So not necessarily investing in sort of speculative or really high risk types of equity investments, but invest in really high quality stock investments, diversified stock investments. So there's different areas of the market. So there's growth stocks, there's value stocks, there's what are called large cap stocks, mid cap stocks, and small cap stocks. Having a blend and a range, because different areas of the market perform differently over time. And so by having that diversified approach, if one goes down or is maybe underperforming, the other is probably outperforming that one. And so having that balance helps offset you really feeling the full brunt of the implications when one area of the market is down. Let's see, I think I got most of them. How much money do you put in a retirement plan? How much would it be here? So that's a very, how much money do you put in a retirement plan and how much do you put in a bank account savings? That's a very personal question about, you know, how much you're taking in each month and, or, you know, in your kind of annual salary, annual income. And so think about what you feel comfortable. You know, I think it's a question of building up both. You know, and kind of having that stability in both vehicles for you. So, you know, for individuals, you know, you can contribute to your 401k plans directly. You can contribute to IRAs. You don't necessarily have to feel like you're hitting the maximum. If you can, that's great. But if it prevents you from building up your personal savings, then, you know, maybe you want to find the balance there. Do you offer services to people who don't live in your area? We certainly do. We have clients all over the country. And so we're happy to have a conversation with you regardless of where you live, especially right now in this remote environment. That's certainly one way that that's helped us is be able to connect with more and more people around the country. But even in the non-COVID environment, we travel to clients in California, you know, Michigan, Florida, you know, kind of all over. How do you choose a financial advisor? Do you meet and speak to a few and decide? Yes, that's exactly how you want to do it because it's a very personal relationship. So, you know, it's important that you speak to someone and it's important that you feel like they hear what you're saying and that they understand your needs, what you're trying to accomplish. They understand your risk tolerance. And, you know, it's kind of like dating a little bit, you know, you date a bunch of people and ultimately you find your significant other, you know, and that's the person that you feel like you can be honest with, be yourself with. And that's what you want with a financial advisor. Do you have investment suggestions for investing when you're recovering from a bad investment, for example, real estate or divorce? What's really important there is taking inventory of what you do have and making sure then that you take a step back and say, okay, why did that loss happen? Or what caused that bad investment? What was the thought process behind making that investment? And so that way it doesn't necessarily happen again. If it's divorce, okay, now that we're divorced, what assets do I have versus my ex? What do they have? And what types of assets are they? Are they purely retirement assets and I'm 35 or 40 and I can't touch them, until further down the road? So taking inventory and then coming up with a plan is always really important.
Thank you, Nina. It looks like you got through all the questions. Do you have any last thoughts to share?
My last thoughts, as I would just say, is more than anything is just get involved. Start understanding your personal investments and what your net worth is, not only just your financial net worth, but also your personal net worth. Think about, women in general today, the opportunities we have, and really don't be afraid to speak up, get involved, say to your significant other, you know what, I want to come to that meeting with our financial advisor next time, or just pick up the phone and call the advisor. We have some clients who they really just don't want to be involved, but we always encourage them to still at least come to the annual meeting because it's important that they feel like they know us. So, the first thing I'll say is just make sure you get involved and start doing something. It doesn't have to be with an advisor, but just make sure that you do something to set yourself up financially.
Great, thank you. Well, with that said, thank you everyone for joining us today, and a very special thank you to Nina for such an informative presentation. For Nina's full bio, please go to stjohns.edu/APD series. Here you will also find a schedule of upcoming webinars and past recordings. I hope you will join us next week, Thursday, March 11th at 9 a.m., where we will have a discussion on stress management. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Nina.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, everyone. And I'll be sure to share with Stacy the presentation and the budget worksheet, so you'll have it as well. Thank you.
Great.